They still talk about her in the quiet town strung along Highway 28, though the stories have faded like sun-bleached photos left too long in a window. Her name was Danielle Kessler, 16 years old, freckled and restless, with strawberry blonde hair she kept in a high ponytail and a Walkman always clipped to her hip. In the spring of 1982, she vanished. When they found her 3 weeks later near Lenore Lake, her body was battered, her lips split and dry as dust. Her face was unrecognizable. But there was no question it was Danielle. No question, because she still had the cassette tape clutched in one cold hand. The label, handwritten in neat black marker, simply read, Danielle's Escape Mix. Eastern Washington in the early 80s was a place of forgotten plains, yawning skies, and rusted tractors chewing the edges of hayfields. Towns like Odessa and Davenport barely lit up the map, and the Scablands, vast, craggy badlands carved up by ancient floods, were places even locals didn't go unless they had to. They were barren, windswept pockets of rock and silence, where cell service hadn't yet been imagined and the stars fell too close at night. Danielle had been trying to make it from Moses Lake to Spokane. Her mother worked long hours at a nursing home and her stepfather had a temper like spilled gasoline. She told friends she was heading to her cousin Lisa's place for a few days. She didn't tell anyone she was planning to hitchhike. It was Saturday, May 15, 1982, when she was last seen alive, walking backward along the shoulder of Highway 28, her thumb out, her headphones on. The breeze tugged at her jean jacket, and her eyes, green like glacial runoff, were half hidden by the reflection of the sun in her sunglasses. Several motorists passed her, but no one stopped. Except one. The driver of the forest green Plymouth Fury was never found. Witnesses described him only vaguely: white male, maybe mid-30s, sunglasses, cigarette dangling from his lip, a red trucker cap pulled low. Danielle climbed into the passenger side, waved goodbye to an oncoming van, and that was it. Gone. The search didn't start for another 3 days. Her mother assumed she made it to Lisa's. Lisa assumed she changed her mind. Her boyfriend didn't think to worry until her cassette player was found 2 miles outside Odessa, smashed near the side of the road, its headphones ripped cleanly in two. Volunteers, dogs, helicopters. Nothing. Until the morning of June 7. A pair of geologists conducting a survey near the Lenore Caves stumbled upon her body. She was partially buried beneath a mound of basalt rock, deep in a ravine carved by time and flood. Her clothes were torn. Her shoes were missing. Her throat was raw. And that cassette tape was still in her hand. The coroner noted signs of prolonged assault, bruising inconsistent with a single blow, and lacerations that suggested binding. Yet the official report remained vague. The case was labeled open but inactive. Local law enforcement blamed transient workers, a crime of opportunity. But the people in the nearby towns weren't so sure. There had been other disappearances. Other girls. Always the same region. Always near the Scablands. In 1979, 18-year-old Krista Mallory went missing near Soap Lake. Her body was never found. In 1980, college student Anita Sloan vanished between Ephrata and Coulee City. Her car was discovered, doors open, engine running. And now Danielle. The story started that same summer. A few hikers reported hearing music near the caves, old pop songs distorted by static, like a cassette stuck halfway through a dying battery. One man claimed he found a cassette lying in the dust with the same handwriting, Danielle's Escape Mix. Others reported seeing a girl walking barefoot along Highway 28 late at night. Strawberry blonde. Thumb raised. But when they stopped, she was gone. By fall, a local reporter named Janet Harker began digging deeper. She collected statements, Polaroids, even police logs. She noted something chilling: all of the missing girls shared similar traits. Hair color, height, age. All were traveling alone. All had been near or along Highway 28. Janet wrote one article for the local paper. It was pulled within 24 hours. She left the state the following week. The case of Danielle Kessler faded into local legend. But in diners and gas stations between Harrington and Soap Lake, people still remember. They remember the music. They remember the girl with the cassette tape. And some swear, when the wind dies in the Scablands, you can hear her scream. In the winter of 1983, a year after Danielle's death, a drifter named Hank Lemon claimed he saw her ghost. He was passing through Odessa, trying to get to Spokane before the next snowstorm hit. Broke, high on a cocktail of meth and regret, Hank decided to cut across the Scablands to shave a day off his walk. What he found nearly killed him. He stumbled into a ranger station at Sun Lake State Park with his coat torn and his face bruised. When asked what happened, he could barely form words. He kept repeating, she screamed like she was still dying. Paramedics chalked it up to exposure and hallucinations. The Rangers weren't so sure. One of them, a man named Eli Granger, had grown up in Odessa. He'd been part of the original search party for Danielle. And he still remembered what they found beneath the rocks. So Eli paid Hank a visit in the hospital that night. "Where did you see her?" Hank trembled. "Caves. Near the basalt ridge. I was walking through the wash, thought I heard music. Fleetwood Mac, I think. But real warped, like a bad dream. I followed it. That's when I saw her." "Saw who?" "The girl. Bleeding. Smiling. Her mouth was full of teeth, wrong kind of teeth, too many. She walked backward toward me. She whispered something, I don't know what. Then the ground opened. Like it swallowed her." Eli wanted to believe he was hallucinating. But Hank wasn't the only one who saw things. By 1984, there were more reports, campers who claimed their radios stopped working when they drove through the dunes near Lenore Lake. Hunters who said they saw shadows darting through the sagebrush. Hikers who turned around after hearing laughter echoing off rock walls. All described the same thing, music that didn't belong. Pop songs from a different time. Distorted. Bleeding. Like a broken mixtape playing in hell. Eli went back to the caves in October 1985. He brought a tape recorder, a map, and a crucifix that had belonged to his mother. He didn't tell anyone. He recorded 2 hours of silence. Birds. Wind. A rabbit skittering across shale. Then, on playback, something else. A voice. "You hear me now?" Followed by a scream. Not human. Not animal. Something in between. Eli quit the Ranger service the next month. He moved to Oregon, changed his name, and never spoke publicly again. But he mailed that tape to Janet Harker. She never opened the envelope. It was found, unopened, in her file cabinet after she died of a heart attack in 1999. Inside, the cassette was labeled in black marker. Danielle's Escape Mix. To those who knew him in the late 1970s, Frank Colson seemed like the kind of man who'd offer you a ride and ask for nothing in return. He was quiet, polite, always wore a red trucker cap and drove a forest green Plymouth Fury that purred like a cat in idle. He lived alone on a patch of land near Soap Lake, surrounded by dust and scrub brush. Neighbors recalled he worked odd jobs, mechanic, janitor, something with the county road crew, but no one ever really got close to him. Frank disappeared in 1986. But for years before that, rumors clung to him like smoke. A waitress in Coulee City claimed he followed her home one night. Never said a word. Just parked across the street, engine idling. A girl in a Freighter told police she got into a green car once, only to leap out at a stop sign when she saw the driver's fingernails were black, like he'd been digging in ash. And in 1982, a witness said he saw a green Plymouth Fury pull off Highway 28 near where Danielle Kessler vanished. The driver wore a red cap. He smoked Camels. When detectives finally searched Frank's property in 1986, they found the house abandoned. The door had been left open. Plates still sat in the sink. The television was on, tuned to static. But the basement told a different story. Inside were dozens of cassette tapes. Labeled in neat black marker. Journey Mix. Escape 1. Danielle. And scrawled across the wall in what may have been dried blood. You hear me now? In the summer of 1991, nearly a decade after Danielle Kessler's murder, a documentary crew from a small cable channel in Seattle arrived in the Scablands. Their series, Haunted Highways of the Northwest, had covered phantom hitchhikers and ghost lights from the Cascades to the Snake River. The Lenore Lake story, with its unmarked graves and disappearing drifters, had all the ingredients they were looking for. The crew consisted of producer Claire Dunbar, cameraman Tom Vickers, sound tech Raul Sanchez, and local guide Hannah Wyatt, a geology student from Eastern Washington University who had written a thesis on the flood-formed canyons of the Columbia Basin. They set up camp 2 miles west of the Lenore Caves. The sun baked the land in rippling heat mirages. The basalt columns stood like ancient sentinels, quiet and unblinking. Claire had done her research. She knew about Danielle, about the whispers of other missing girls, and about the basement full of tapes discovered on Frank Coulson's abandoned property. What fascinated her most were the recurring reports of cassette tapes always labeled in the same way, always appearing where they shouldn't be. On their second night, Tom reported that the camp's generator kept cutting out. It's like something's draining the battery, he said, frowning. And the sound gear keeps picking up weird background noise. Like warbling music. Raul laughed it off until midnight, when their recording equipment began playing a tape none of them had inserted. A girl's voice, faint under layers of distortion. You hear me now? Followed by static. Then the unmistakable chorus of Fleetwood Mac's Dreams. Claire bolted upright in her tent. Tom ran to the equipment case. Nothing was playing. No tape inside. No playback active. The crew barely slept. The next morning, Hannah wanted to leave. There's something here, she said, eyes rimmed red. I dreamt of a girl walking backwards into the lake. She was whispering something I couldn't understand, but her mouth was bleeding. Claire convinced them to stay one more night. This is what we came for. We're documenting a story, and that story just arrived. They returned to the Lenore Caves around sunset, filming the fading light over the ridgeline. Raul set the sound gear on a boulder. As Claire spoke into the camera, introducing the segment, the mic caught a sudden blast of garbled audio. Please. Please. He won't stop. Then silence. The recording showed no sign of tampering. That night, Tom wandered off around 2 a.m. They found him just after sunrise, standing ankle-deep in the lake. His face was pale. His eyes unblinking. He whispered, "She told me to stay. She said she needed to finish the song." They packed up and left the Scablands that morning. Claire never finished the episode. The footage was turned over to a private investigator and quietly buried. But the sound files leaked. To this day, a few deep corners of the internet still circulate the Lenore Mix, a corrupted audio track that includes fragments of Danielle's tape. Rumors claim that listening to it at midnight, within 10 miles of Highway 28, causes visions, headaches, even death. One Reddit user claimed his cousin listened to it on a camping trip near Soap Lake and disappeared. Only his phone was found, screen cracked, still playing Fleetwood Mac. Claire Dunbar retired from television in 1993. She teaches journalism now and refuses all interviews on the subject. In the fall of 2005, a man named Bill Hoskins purchased a patch of land near Lenore Lake with plans to build a small hunting lodge. A retired corrections officer, Bill didn't believe in ghosts. 3 months later, he was found sitting in his pickup with the engine running, doors locked from the inside, cassette tape spooled across the dashboard. His autopsy revealed he died of a heart attack. But the tape deck? It was empty. On the dash, written in permanent marker. You hear me now? By winter of 2006, the Scablands had settled again into their usual desolation, but the ghost of Danielle Kessler refused to be buried. A local high school senior named Aaron LeClaire, obsessed with local legends, chose the Lenore Lake story for his capstone project. His teacher, a former newspaper reporter, warned him to avoid sensationalism. "This is a tragedy," she said. "Not a campfire tale." But Aaron wasn't interested in respect. He wanted fame. Armed with a mini DV camcorder and a cheap EMF reader he bought online, Aaron drove into the Lenore Basin alone on March 3, 2006. He never came home. When authorities found his car abandoned near an old trailhead, it was locked. On the driver's seat sat his camcorder, still recording. The footage was grainy, the microphone overwhelmed by wind, but 20 minutes in, the screen went to static. Then, just before the battery died, a whisper. "I can't feel my hands." Aaron's backpack was recovered days later, half buried in a dry creek. Inside was a cassette recorder, non-functional, and a second tape labeled and scrawled, black ink, number 10, Friday Light. No one knew what that meant. The tape was sent to the crime lab in Spokane. It contained no music, only faint breathing and what sounded like dripping water. The case was never solved. Local legend mutated. Teens began daring each other to sleep near the caves or to walk barefoot into Lenore Lake after sunset. Some swore they saw a girl's silhouette reflected on water where none should be. Others claimed they heard muffled lyrics on the wind. "Now here you go again, you say you want your freedom." In 2010, an author named Julia Fairbank wrote a best-selling book titled Scablands, The Lost Girls of Eastern Washington. It cataloged disappearances, strange reports, and eerie coincidences along Highway 28. The final chapter was titled Danielle's Tape. Fairbank received death threats. The book was banned in several school libraries. But she also received dozens of anonymous letters, some handwritten in shaky cursive, detailing similar hauntings across Washington and Idaho. Most ended with the same phrase. "She sings when she's close." In 2017, drone footage from a geological survey captured an unexplainable shape standing on a basalt outcrop near Lenore Lake, motionless, thin, and draped in what appeared to be 1980s clothing. The image was scrubbed from the official report, but screen captures circulated online. Some users enhanced the frame, claiming to reveal bleeding eyes and a slit smile. They called her the Cassette Girl. By 2021, no one lived within 10 miles of Lenore Lake. The last residents moved after a series of power failures, animal mutilations, and, in one case, an entire herd of cattle found clustered at the shoreline, motionless and staring at the lake. Today, Highway 28 still cuts through the heart of eastern Washington like a scar across dead flesh. Most travelers don't stop near Lenore. The GPS glitching begins around mile marker 134. Radios crackle. Phones freeze. And sometimes, for those who listen too closely to the silence, a song plays where no song should. Fleetwood Mac. Listen carefully, and you'll hear her hum along. The state no longer patrols that section at night. There are no signs, no service stations, no motels. Just wind and rock and whispers. They say if you drive that stretch alone, keep your windows rolled up and your radio off. Because she's still waiting. Still bleeding. And still singing.